Hi guys, and many thanks for joining me. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Kat and I like to talk about crimes, investigations and all sorts of related stuff. Please don't forget to make sure you hit that big red subscribe button below. Also hit the notification bell so you are the first one to know about any new videos I upload. For my returning subscribers and viewers, I would like to thank you all so much for all the continuous support and all the lovely comments I keep reading from you. Thank you. Today I want to talk to you about Oakley International. But before we do that, here is the disclaimer. I do not mean to be disrespectful to anyone I talk about in this video. The video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information I collect is from the internet. I compile all this information together. I make a video, and from that, guys, you are more than welcome to draw your own conclusions. Thank you. So, let's begin. Shortly after the Mccanns let go of Metodo 3, which allegedly scammed them, they are employing the services of Oakley International, a US registered company controlled and headed by Kevin Halligen. Oakley International was awarded £500,000 for a 6-month contract, and the company was overseen, or supervised if you like, by the same Brian Kennedy, just like Metodo 3 was. Why I'm saying awarded is because Oakley International won the contract after it was introduced by another company, Red Defense International, based in London, UK. This company was Kevin Halligen's company. Red Defense International was set up as an international security and political risk company, advising clients on risks involved in doing business in unstable countries. Halligen was a persuasive advocate of IT security. In 2006, his company, Red Defense International, was hired by Trafigura, the Dutch commodities trading company. Executives were imprisoned in the Ivory Coast after toxic waste was dumped in landfills near its biggest city, Abidjan. Trafigura was blamed and hired Red Defense International at vast expense to help with the negotiations to release its executives. The case ended when Trafigura paid $197 million to the government of the Ivory Coast to secure the release of the prisoners. Okay, now let's get back to the Mccanns. So, when Harry Exton, a former undercover police officer who worked on MI5 operations, and Kevin Halligen, a smooth-talking Irishman who claimed to have worked for covert British government intelligence agency GCHQ, walked through the door, their timing was just perfect. Their sales speech was classic James Bond style. Everything had to be top secret and on a need-to-know basis. The operation would involve 24-hour alert systems, undercover units, satellite imagery, and round-the-clock surveillance teams that would fly in at a short notice. This sounded very exciting, but it was also a big lie. But Brian Kennedy was impressed, and Exton and Halligen were hired for a fee of £100,000 per month plus expenses. The contract was with Halligen's UK security company, Red Defense International Limited. Only a tiny group of employees did the investigative work of dealing with thousands of emails and phone calls. Resources were channeled into undercover operations in pedophile rings and among gypsies throughout Europe, encouraged by Kennedy. A 5-man surveillance team was dispatched in Portugal, overseen by the experienced Exton, for 6 weeks. Born in Belgium in 1951, Exton had been a highly effective undercover officer for the Manchester police. He successfully infiltrated gangs of football hooligans in the 80s. In 1991, he was seconded to work on MI5 undercover operations against drug dealers, gangsters, and terrorists, and was later awarded the Queen's Police Medal for outstanding bravery. Exton was a dedicated officer, but in November 2002, the stress appeared to have overcome his judgment when he was arrested for shoplifting. While working on an MI5 surveillance, Exton was caught leaving a tax-free shopping area at Manchester Airport with a bottle of perfume he didn't pay for. The police were called and he was given the option of the offense being dealt with under caution or to face prosecution. He chose a police caution and so in effect admitted his guilt. Exton was sacked but was furious about the way he had been treated and threatened to sue MI5. So, he threw away his entire career for a bottle of perfume. Okay. This is another one, I hear. I don't think I actually came across anyone working for the Mccanns to be an honest individual. They surround themselves and they are surrounded only by crooked people. But I guess this is what you need if you are one of them, in my opinion. But there's so much more to be said, especially about Kevin Halligen. Oakley International was registered as the manufacturer of search and navigation equipment. The company was registered in Washington, D.C., and the address given for the company was 2250 M Street, NW, Washington. This address was also the office of Patton Boggs, one of the largest and most powerful lawyer firms in America. Kevin Halligen donated $1,000 towards the primary election campaign put together by Washington, D.C. Congressman John R. Unger II in July 2008, according to U.S. Commission files. This puts him on the radar and Patton Boggs in the frame. John R. Unger II is a Democrat representing the 16th District in the West Virginia Senate. The senator acted as Homeland Security and Economic Development Advisor for EG&G, Egerton, Germeshausen and Grier Incorporated United Research Services, a U.S. defense contractor. And according to Wikipedia, and I quote, EG&G, formerly known as Egerton, Germeshausen and Grier, was a United States national defense contractor and provider of management and technical services. The company was involved in contracting services to the United States government during World War II and conducted weapons research and development during the Cold War era, from 1948 onwards. Its close involvement with some of the government's most sensitive technology has led to its being cited in conspiracy theories related to the Department of Defense black projects. End of quote. From 1999 until 2001, EG&G was wholly owned by the Carlyle Group. But wait for it, okay? The Carlyle Group is also the biggest investor in Kinetic plc, which is a privatized British defense and security company chaired between 2002 to 2005 by Baroness Neville Jones, a close friend of Baroness Sarah Hogg, former advisor to John Major. Hogg's private equity company 3i plc are major investors in Brian Kennedy and Control Risk Group, who provided risk services to the UK government in the aftermath of the war in Iraq. Sarah Hogg's sister, Justice Mary Hogg, is the legal guardian of Madeleine Mccann, as a result of being made a ward of court in 2007. UK private equity and private intelligence and defense network advised and supported the Mccanns from the beginning. Kinetic plc, which is chaired by Baroness Neville Jones, was sixth in a list of companies who received most of the annual expenditure on research and development tasks for the UK government's defense program from 2001 to 2008. Baroness Neville Jones, oh my god, this scared me again. Oh, I'm gonna switch it off. I'm always so jumpy, I don't know why. Okay, let's get back to it. Baroness Neville Jones was an advisor to Washington, D.C.'s Private Defense and Intelligence Forum, the intelligence summit organized by ex-Nazi prosecutor John Loftus and sponsored by Michael Cherney, who Interpol were looking to speak to on a number of alleged money laundering offenses. Richard Parton, who partnered Halligen on Madeleine's investigation, and Michael Shrimpton QC were also regular advisors at the annual intelligence summit. Greg Dyke was the one who accused Baroness Neville Jones and Baroness Sarah Hogg as being behind his sacking from the BBC as a result of his handling of David Kelly WMD affair. Here's how the David Kelly affair went. In 2002, Tony Blair's government was looking for valid reasons to join the US in invading Saddam Hussein's Iraq. An intelligence report published that September, with Number 10's full approval, stated that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction which posed a clear and present danger to the West. The report headlined the claim that Iraq could deploy and activate chemical weapons within 45 minutes of an order being given. So, Britain goes to war in March 2003 with the assumption the dossier was the truth, and Britain wins. But after the war, no one ever found any weapons of mass destruction. The war and its horrible consequences were based in part by the nation being deceived into thinking the invasion was justified by a government whose prime minister just wanted by any means to join the Americans into going to war. David Kelly, one of the world's top weapons inspectors and an employee of Britain's Ministry of Defense, gave a background briefing about the missing weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, to Andrew Gilligan, a BBC defense reporter working for BBC Radio 4. However, the version of the Kelly briefing transmitted by Andrew Gilligan on the BBC's Today programme claimed that his anonymous contact had told him that the published intelligence dossier had been sexed up before its publication, especially that 45-minute claim, a claim that made headlines in the British press when it was published, and the claim taken very seriously by the British public. The clear implication of Gilligan's BBC report was that the government had a hand in an attempt to deceive the public, and that Britain's intelligence services were unhappy with his Whitehall interference. A few days later, in a story in the Mail on Sunday, Gilligan went on to claim that his source named Alastair Campbell, Tony Blair's communications director, as being behind the inflation of the language in the dossier, an act which amounted to bending the truth to suit a political aim. In other words, the Prime Minister himself had been responsible, through his communications chief, of lying to Britain in order to join the Americans in invading Iraq. Gilligan's reports and the BBC immediately implicated the government, the intelligence services, and Campbell himself. David Kelly was probably the most distinguished arms inspector in the Western world. He was the one who established the Soviets had been planning to bombard the West with smallpox, anthrax, and plague in the event of a nuclear exchange. It was also he who, after the first war with Iraq, found the first real evidence of Baghdad's intention to produce nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare weapons of mass destruction. So, the dossier claiming Iraq had retained weapons of mass destruction was published in September 2002. The intelligence file had been collated by the GIC, the Cabinet Office Joint Intelligence Committee, under its chairman, Sir John Scarlett. He took responsibility for the document. Most of its assumptions were based on intelligence submitted by Britain's MI6 and some from the American CIA. Following David Kelly's suicide in 2003, Tony Blair, the then British Prime Minister, set up a government inquiry under Lord Hutton, a former Lord Chief Justice of Northern Ireland. The inquiry concluded that Kelly had committed suicide by cutting his left wrist, and that his death was hastened by his taking coproxamol tablets. In my opinion, it's really strange the way that Kelly would have committed this suicide. So, by what I was reading was that he took the coproxamol tablets from home, and he went to the beach, and he lay down on that beach, and he took his wristwatch off his wrist to make space for the wrist to be, without any obstructions. And he took those tablets, the coproxamol, and then he cut his wrist with a knife, as far as I understand from reading. So what is strange to me is that if someone wants to kill themselves, and the way I see, right, he took the tablets, yeah, so he wanted to make sure that he dies, right? After taking the tablets, he takes off his watch, he cuts his wrist, but then why is he cutting only one hand? I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Usually people, when they try to commit suicide and they cut their wrists, they cut both their wrists, because they want to ensure that there is enough blood so they die, isn't it? Plus, on the other hand, he also took the tablets. So that thing doesn't make sense. Not the fact that he took the tablets, but the fact that he only cut his left wrist. It doesn't make sense at all. Anyway, moving on. Greg Dyke, the Director General, resigned 2 days after the publication of the report, following a meeting of BBC governors where it was reported he only retained the support of 1/3 of the board. However, after announcing his resignation, Dyke stated, and I quote, "I do not necessarily accept the findings of Lord Hutton." End of quote. Andrew Gilligan resigned because of his part in the affair on 30th of January. However, in his resignation statement, he questioned the value of Hutton's report. And I quote again, "This report casts a chill over all journalism, not just the BBC's. It seeks to hold reporters, with all the difficulties they face, to a standard that it does not appear to demand of, for instance, government dossiers." End of quote. Blair, who had been repeatedly under fire for the sexing up allegations, told the House of Commons in the debate following the release of the report that he had been completely exonerated. Right, let's get back to Halligen. The Homeland Security expert that Halligen backed, Senator John R. Unger II, earned his first degree and his master's at the University of Oxford. Control Risks Group, the private security company hired by Brian Kennedy, was one of the 4 companies used by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to protect its property and staff in Iraq. The address and employer's name given by Halligen when he donated to the US Congressman Unger II was the same address as Patton Boggs. Oakley International was also registered to the same address. TfL Defense was also registered to the same address. TfL Defense were military construction contractors who took over $170,000 in government defense contracts between 2000 and 2008. On the same donation record for the congressman, Halligen described his job as attorney or lawyer. Patton Boggs were also specialized lobby shop, and it represented many companies seeking and eventually winning contracts for infrastructure reconstruction in the wake of hostilities and regime change in countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Angola, and Pakistan. Oh my god. Oh my god, I found another twisted one. Oh my god. Okay. Colonel John Garrett, a defense lobbyist for Patton Boggs and frequent commentator for Fox News, Robert Murdoch's US News Channel, was Halligen's best man at his wedding to Maria Dybzak, a trade lawyer for the US Commerce Department. That wedding, which was actually a fake wedding. And Halligen convinced his future wife of going ahead with the fake wedding by saying that he's actually a spy, and the people who he invited, they are infiltrating and whatever. Yeah, a sort of a cover-up for his fake marriage. But I think that he did have a different reason for it anyway. You'll find out later. Garrett had been introduced to Halligen at the Special Forces Club in Knightsbridge, central London, and according to the Times, Halligen's name was put forward by Major Donald Palmer, then chairman of entry into the Special Forces Club, and Major General John Holmes, a former commander of the SAS, Special Air Services, and former director of Special Forces. Another senior US defense figure and regular Fox News commentator, Andre Hollis, was chief executive at Oakley International. Hollis became friend with Halligen in Washington, where Hollis worked as a vice president of Van Scoyoc Associates, a powerful lobbying firm that performed services on behalf of the British Embassy's defense procurement program. As a consequence of this work, Van Scoyoc was registered as a foreign agent of the United Kingdom. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Hollis was the senior department official responsible for efforts to train and equip security forces in Colombia and Afghanistan. So, oh my god. Okay, I am just realizing now how twisted everything seems to be. And it seems that like all of it revolves around weapons, defense, war, and stuff like that. Oh, okay. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. So, a lot of people are saying that Halligen was a high-class scammer, right? It's everywhere in the media that he was a scammer. Or he faked high class to scam high class people, right? He siphoned money wherever he could from, and he became a persona that he created as a wealthy, well-connected individual at the top levels. He lived lavishly on borrowed money and lies. He was more or less a jack of all trades and master of none, right? Okay, although I find it very, very hard to believe Halligen was so intelligent that he managed to trick all these people, congressmen, secretary of defense, lawyers, officials, public figures. No, it's almost impossible. To me, it looks like, you know, watching a movie where you have this well-written character who is covered from all points of view to seem exactly the character that he is meant to be. Nothing more, nothing less. During 2008, Hollis and Van Scoyoc provided lobbying services to the Forensic Science Services based in Birmingham, FSS, and very much at the center of Madeleine Mccann investigation. This is where I was getting to. The current head of the FSS at that time was Simon Bennett, previously MD at Kinetic plc, the former government defense company run by Baroness Neville Jones. Before that, Bennett was in defense and aerospace. Britain's previous major investor in forensic services was 3i plc, the private equity company behind Brian Kennedy and Control Risks Group. Hollis and Van Scoyoc also lobbied the Senate in Washington on behalf of another 3i investment, the Ricardo Group plc. This Ricardo Group plc covers a range of market sectors, including passenger car, commercial vehicles, rail, defense, motorsport, motorcycle, off-highway, marine, clean energy and power generation, and government. Its client list includes transportation original equipment manufacturers, supply chain organizations, energy companies, financial institutions, and government agencies, as well as the Shoreham UK headquarters. There are technical centers in Royal Leamington Spa, Cambridge, Chicago, Detroit, Aachen, Schwabes Gmund, Prague, and regional offices in Shanghai, Yokohama, Seoul, New Delhi, and Moscow. Everywhere. And that was taken from Wikipedia, what I just mentioned. So, Hollis and Oakley International were in charge of Madeleine McCann's investigation, right? At the same time that they were lobbying for the FSS and selling it off to the Yanks, a common term referred to for Americans. I couldn't find out exactly to who they were actually lobbying to sell the FSS to. So, how impartial do you think that they were to this investigation if they were so closely connected with the FSS, if they were dealing in a sale with the FSS? This is really problematic because the way I see it is just like with the police. So you have, let's say, a murder, right? The police officer at the scene finds out that the suspect is his cousin. Only by being related to the suspect, the police officer cannot carry on investigating because of his close connection to the case. He can't be impartial to the case. That's how I see it with Hollis, Oakley International, and the FSS. And I think that if those DNA results were inconclusive as they say, this was done on purpose, in my opinion. And here is another connection with the FSS, and I'll let you judge this by yourself. The non-executive chairman of Control Risks Group, the company recruited by the McCann sponsor Brian Kennedy in May 2007, was Major Stephen Rose. A veteran of Northern Ireland and the Gulf states, Major Rose was elected as president of the same Special Forces Club. At the same time, Halligen's friend, Major Donald Palmer, replaced Colonel Edward Toms as chairman. Because it was Rose's former forces friend Palmer who put Halligen's name forward in the first place, it's very likely, in my opinion, that Halligen, already known amongst the ex-forces and intelligence circle, was pushed too quick to the top. Maybe with the sole purpose of providing services to the McCanns and then secretly prepared to be a scapegoat. which would make much more sense than highly intelligent people to be scammed like that. Seriously. It's also important to remember that it was Brian Kennedy who bought Oakley International in the game, just like he bought Metodo 3 in the game. It was also Brian Kennedy who ignored the ex-detectives from Metodo 3 when they accused the boss of scamming the Madeleine Fund. If indeed the Mccanns are running a fraud together with Brian Kennedy and others, or money laundering, then, in my opinion, those money out of Madeleine's fund had to be spent somewhere, to go through various companies. They had to sort of lose the trail. That's why what I'm seeing here is tons and tons of companies and subsidiaries being not involved but being connected somewhat to each other, and it's like, and it goes not only in the UK, it goes to America, and it goes to various different other countries. And no, there is no such thing as a child disappearance case to lead where he actually leads. There isn't, honestly. And then also we have Metodo 3. They were given 6 months contract, right? Then Oakley International, they were given 6 months contract as well. Operation Grange requests funding every 6 months. I really think the Metodo 3 and Oakley International figures are well inflated. I also find it very hard to believe Operation Grange is actually spending £350,000 on a 4 officers investigation for 6 months. There's nothing in my opinion that can justify the money requested to the spending. The starting salary for police constables in England, Wales and Northern Ireland is between around £20,000 and £24,000 per year, rising to £40,000 at the top of the scale, achievable after about 7 years. The range of salaries for sergeants is around £41,000 to £45,000. Inspectors can earn between around £51,000 and £55,000, or between £53,000 and £58,000 in London, rising to between around £56,000 and £59,000 for chief inspectors, between £59,000 to £61,000 in London, right? So if you look at this, even if you would have 4 of the highest paid police officers, the inspectors, as you can see the figure there, which you don't have on Operation Grange, it still doesn't make up the amount for 6 months. It doesn't. The figures I have shown you are salaries for 1 year. 1 year salaries. So you would need to divide that into 6 months. So it would be half of the figures I showed you. Either way you try to work it out, it just doesn't add up. And this is every 6 months. And more money are requested every 6 months. Major Rose was also one of the few senior military figures calling for Blair's impeachment over his handling of the war in Iraq. It didn't, however, stop the Tory peer from capitalizing on the invasion through a series of lucrative contracts won by Control Risks Group. Control Risks Group was founded in 1975 by Timothy Royal as a subsidiary of Hogg Robinson, the corporate travel giant and rival to companies like Mark Warner. Several of the veterans have also worked at Oakley International and Kroll Inc., the private security firm in charge of security at the World Trade Center at the time of 9/11. Lobbying records show Patton Boggs represents foreign governments and corporations. The Patton Boggs Political Action Committee and Thomas Bogg also made significant contributions to the re-election of Senator Richard Shelby. One of several senior figures Jerry McCann met in Washington to discuss support for the U.S. search for Madeleine. Shelby served on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence from 1995 to 2003 under Clinton and Bush respectively. In 2004, a federal investigation concluded that Shelby had leaked classified information to Rupert Murdoch's Fox News regarding 2 rather dubious messages picked up by the National Security Agency. Shelby's election campaign was also financially supported by Kinetic North America, the company chaired by the UK's Baroness Neville Jones, friend of Sarah Hogg, whose 3i Investments company supports Brian Kennedy. Kinetic North America's executive vice president, Tom Weston, sits on the advisory panel of Excalibur, with senior counsel to Patent Box, John Breaux. Excalibur has on their website, and I quote, "Since 1992, Excalibur's information technology consulting services have assisted clients ranging from the Department of Defense and National Cancer Institute to non-profits and corporations to operate more efficiently, preserve capital, and increase productivity and revenues. Excalibur solutions for health sciences, enterprise-level reporting, educational programs, grant management, and budget and financial management prove that technology can be developed and delivered on time." End of quote. In return for Kinetic's support, Senator Shelby awarded the private security and intelligence firm a contract worth $8 million to provide work on behalf of the U.S. Army Aviation and Missile Research, Development and Engineering Center. Patton Boggs and Thomas Boggs also supported the election campaigns of Democrat Congressman Nick Lamson. Another of the officials and advisors Jerry met in Washington. The third and most important member of the dignitaries Jerry met in Washington was Alberto Gonzales, at that time Attorney General of the United States government. Oh boy, this is so twisted. It's getting more and more twisted by the minute. Patton Boggs Colonel and John Garrett and Kevin Halligen's best man at his wedding was able to arrange private briefings with Gonzales during his time as advisor at the White House, and it's possible that Jerry's invitation to the White House was managed through Garrett's links with control risks. During his visit at the White House, another Patton Boggs associate, Colin M. Newman, functioned as a liaison to the National Commission on Terrorist Attacks upon the United States, also known as the 9/11 Commission, and participated in a number of high-level government investigations, serving at the White House as a legal aid to Alberto Gonzales. Bell Pottinger, who provided crisis management services on behalf of the Mccanns and Mark Warner, represented Trafigura, the company bringing charges against Halligen over a failure to honor a contract. Carter Rock provided legal assistance to the Swiss-based company. Another guest at Halligen's wedding was Noel Koch, the former United States Assistant Secretary of Defense and after advisor to Barack Obama. Koch was a leading voice in calls for regime change in Iraq ahead of the first Gulf War. Koch later said, and I quote, "No one had any doubts about the Iraqis' continuous involvement in terrorism. The real reason was to help them succeed in the war against Iran." End of quote. In 2013, Kevin Richard Halligen, Irish citizen, pled guilty to wire fraud, a federal charge stemming from a scheme in which he defrauded $2.1 million from a Netherlands-based commodities trading company. Announced United States Attorney Ronald C. Mccann Jr. and Valerie Parlav, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office. Halligen pled guilty to one count of wire fraud, the first two counts of an indictment that was returned against him in 2009 in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. As part of the plea agreement, the government agreed to dismiss the second count of the indictment, which was a money laundering charge stemming from the same scheme. The charge of wire fraud carries a statutory maximum of 20 years in prison and a fine up to $250,000. Under federal sentencing guidelines, the parties agreed that Halligen's likely range would be a prison term of 33 to 41 months and a fine between $7,500 and $75,000. Under the plea agreement, Halligen also must pay $2.1 million in restitution to the company that was the victim of his scheme. The Honorable Colleen Kohler Cottley scheduled sentencing for June 27, 2013. The wire fraud charge stems from actions taken by Halligen in 2006 and 2007 when he was the Chief Executive Officer of Red Defense International, a London-based security consulting and crisis management firm which was hired by Trafigura Behir, a Netherlands-based international commodities trading company, and its London-based law firm Watterson Hicks. Kevin Halligen was employed by the Mccanns from March 2008 and ended the contract early in September 2008. The blood-soaked corpse of Kevin has been found at his mansion in January 2018. Police launched an investigation. A former colleague told Mail Online, and I quote, "The house was covered in blood, but apparently that was from Kevin falling down so much. His body is now in the morgue. The police are looking into it." End of quote. A source who knew Kevin said he was a boozer and drink was inevitably his downfall. Oh my god. This again was another very long video again, but I'm hoping well worth watching. So I need to ask, who believes his death was his own doing, as in accidental? Do we believe that? Let me know in the comments below. I don't know, I really don't know, but of course there's always a but I find out in this case. I'm thinking, this man, he knew loads of people, public figures and so on. He got involved in politics, business, money laundering, etc. You name it, he did it. With this type of involvement comes information, and a lot of it. The more people he got involved with, the more he knew. And not necessarily something everyone else knew. Maybe potentially state secrets, something which shouldn't come out, some big and wide scams. Which leads me to believe his death was not accidental. I think that he knew too much and drinking. I think he knew too much and drinking, as we know he did. Someone was probably concerned that he would open his mouth drunk to someone he shouldn't. Better yet, he might have tried blackmailing someone. I don't think this is far-fetched at all. And I'm not surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore in this case. I managed to find out too much information to believe at this stage the accidental death and cover-up of Madeleine Mccann. I think this is much bigger than we can possibly even imagine. You see, I'm talking about stuff which I had no idea I'll come across. I had no idea. Nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons, genetics, the US, the UK, defense, DNA, aerospace, travel agencies, which are supposed to be just travel agencies. But I think in this case, Mark Warner, as a travel agency, is just a cover. This is my opinion. You guys can laugh at it, or you guys can think on it. And for God's sake, I even talked about 9/11. How did I even get to the point where I'm talking about 9/11 in a missing child's case? It's unbelievable. All these things lead me much further than a simple case of a child disappearance. This I believe is the mother lode of cover-ups. Big time. I'm more inclined to believe it's actually a case of nuclear weapons, world domination, genetics, gene modification, the perfect human, the perfect soldier, DNA modification. I'm just seeing so many connections which lead me in all sorts of directions that I'm actually getting confused. And perhaps this is the point. Perhaps this is what they are trying to achieve, to get someone so confused that they drop questioning and that they stop looking into more detail into it. I mean, you see, I keep saying to my husband, right, because I'm investigating this almost on a daily basis for my research, and I keep telling my husband, I found this and then I found this, and the more I go into it, the more I dig, the deeper I get. And the deeper I get, is like the more, I don't know, tunnels, if you will, I find. You know, it's this company, then it's got a subsidiary, then that subsidiary is the subsidiary of something else, then that belongs to a different company, and then that different company belongs to yet another company, and so on. And as you can tell, it sort of goes from here to here to here to here. It sort of goes in circles. And you know, you can't manage to seem to break that link somewhere and to find the answer, because I think that this answer doesn't want to be found, and that's why it has been done in such a way that the more you look, the more confused you get, and the more you look and the more you find out, the less sense it makes. This is a huge, this is a Herculean cover-up, if you will. I don't know if I'm using Herculean in the right context, but anyway, gigantic. This is a gigantic cover-up. It is, in my opinion. I don't know, guys. What do you think? What do you think? Please let me know down in the comments below. Many thanks for watching, and many thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe. This month I'm also doing a few Halloween inspired videos apart from the usual Madeleine Mccann investigation, so stay tuned and make sure you check all my other videos as well. It's amazing, it's great, it's Halloween month. Alright guys, take care and stay safe. Bye bye.